Hi everyone, my name's Dylan and I'm a second year student studying a Bachelor of Psychology Honours and a Bachelor of Laws. I'm joined today by the Director of Undergraduate Studies for Psychology, Dr. Alyssa B. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
So we've got a few questions to ask you about commonly held sort of queries and things that people want to know heading into psychology. So to start off, I guess, what is psychology? Is it reading people's minds or is there more to it than that?
There's definitely more to it than that. So the proper definition of psychology is that it's the scientific study of human behaviour, and what that means is that what we're interested in is how people behave, why it is people do what they do, how they think, how they process information from the world, how we interact with each other, all the things that make people tick and make people special. So certain parts of psychology are about what makes you an individual, what makes you different to your friends, what makes you different to your siblings or from your parents, what makes you special. And then other areas of psychology are about what makes everybody act similarly under certain situations. So how we process information in a similar way, how external influences impact us in a similar way. And so some areas of psychology are about everyday experiences and everyday human behaviour. Other areas of psychology are maybe what a lot of people think about, which is the more clinical end of mental health disorders or mental health challenges. But psychology itself is a hugely wide-ranging discipline. There's a heap that's involved in it.
So definitely more than Dr. Phil on TV.
Definitely, yes. That's a very, very small part of it, yeah.
Awesome, cool. So I guess the next question would be, what can I do to call myself a psychologist? What does becoming a psychologist entail?
So there's the distinction in psychology between the discipline of psych and then a profession of a psychologist. What that means is that if you actually want to practice psychology and call yourself a psychologist, it's actually quite a long road to get there. If you think about the important training that people need in order to practice mental health therapies and to help people with mental health challenges, there's quite a lot of training involved. So what that means is that you need an undergraduate degree in psychology, like a Bachelor of Psychology, which is a 3-year degree. Then you also need an honours year or an equivalent 4th year of your studies, and then some postgraduate training as well. And some of that involves actual professional practical supervision. So it's at least a 6-year pathway to actually get to that point of being able to call yourself a psychologist.
Yeah, for sure. That's so interesting, and the fact that you do take so many steps to actually get there. And I guess it's so important to make sure you have that training and that expertise before you go into helping people with their mental health.
Exactly, yeah, it's really important.
Absolutely, awesome. So the next question would be, you talked about a Bachelor of Psychology and also honours. So what is a Bachelor of Psychology and how does that compare to a Bachelor of Psychology with honours?
So those are 2 different degrees that students can enrol in. The Bachelor of Psychology is a 3-year undergraduate degree. The Bachelor of Psychology honours is a 4-year undergraduate degree, which is those first same 3 years, plus an honours year, which is the 4th year. And the difference between those 2 degrees in terms of the first 2 years of study is basically nothing in terms of the psych that students study. So the psychology part of the first 2 years of the degree is identical between the 2. There's a little bit of a difference at 3rd year for the students who are doing the honours track, and then the main difference is the actual 4th year, which is the honours year. And what students do in that 4th year is they undertake an empirical thesis, and what that means is that they get to conduct their own research study, they get to design a study, carry it out, test some very cool things on some participants, and write it up into this very impressive thesis, and they also do some coursework as well. So that's the 4th year. But the track to get to honours is identical in for those first couple of years between the 2 different degrees. And it's really important that even if you don't get into an honours degree straight off, you can also transfer from the BPsych to the BPsych Hons when you're undertaking your degree, and that's a very common thing for our students to do. So the other thing that's really important for students to know about psychology honours is that even if you're in this honours degree, it's important that you need to meet the entry requirements to get into the honours year, that 4th year, and that just means performing at a certain level across your psychology studies. But the good thing about that is that all students who meet that entry requirement get into honours, so we don't have any caps in our honours places at Macquarie. Every student who gets the entry requirements will get into an honours, will get an honours place.
And that's so special because it means that everyone's working towards a common goal, and it really facilitates collaboration and working collectively rather than having some sort of like competitive trying to fight against each other to get these places.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big thing that we notice among our students is that they really like working together because everyone's trying to achieve the same goal, which is great.
Absolutely. Fantastic, cool. So let's say I'm interested in psych, but I'm not sure if I want to become a psychologist. What options are there out there for me if I just do the 3-year degree?
Yep, so it's really common for our students to take psychology at undergraduate, to be really interested in it, but not necessarily want to go on to the kind of quite long pathway to become a psychologist. And the good news is that there's heaps of different jobs that are training in psychology, and undergraduate training in psychology helps you get prepared for. So because psychology is all about understanding people, people, that makes you very well suited for any kind of job that you might undertake. So understanding what makes people tick, what makes people work well together, understanding kind of management of people, all of those kinds of things are very appropriate for working in business or working in human resource management, areas like that. So there's also a really strong emphasis on critical thinking, on evaluating information from the world, not just believing things that you're told because somebody tells you, but actually thinking independently for yourself. So other jobs that some of our graduates go on to is in social research or market research. It could be in community work or case management. It could be working in organisations. It could be working in policy. There's a heap of different job opportunities available for students outside psychology.
That's so cool. That's awesome that there's so many things available from one single degree that you do.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So I guess the next thing I want to know is what makes psychology at Macquarie special?
So mine's kind of a biased perspective, but I think Macquarie offers a really great psych program. One of the things that makes us really special is one of our subjects at third year has a practical placement element, and what that gives students is the opportunity to actually see what it's like to work in a psychology-related discipline, and a lot of our students get a hands-on experience of these jobs that they might actually end up going into once they finish their degree. So that means that students can work in psychology or work in community work in counselling. There's a heap of different opportunities available to students, and it's their really first strong taste of what it's actually like to work in outside world, outside of their uni studies. So that's a really great subject. We also have a heap of different psych electives that students can take. So throughout your psych degree, there's some core subjects that all students need to take, but there's also quite a range of different options available to you. That's other psych topics that you can take if you're really interested in, say, health psychology, organisational psychology, the psychology of music, or counselling. So there's a really wide range of electives that we offer. And we also have a lot of very passionate teaching staff that teach in our degrees who are absolutely passionate about psychology. So you get a great experience at Macquarie.
I think that passion and that real life applicability is so special. Like the fact that you're able to be in the classroom doing your degree but have such a career-based focus, and how you can actually use your degree after you graduate is such an awesome thing. So that's very, very cool for sure.
We spend a lot of time trying to make that the best experience for our students as possible.
So cool. I love it. So the last question I want to know is, say I'm sold. I'm absolutely loving what you're saying and I want to come to Macquarie for psychology. What does that entail?
So in your first year, what first year psych is all about is giving you an introduction to the really, really broad area that is psychology. And that means that in our first two introduction to psych subjects, you take a little bit of different areas of psychology. So you do a little bit of personality, you do a little bit of social psych, you do a little bit of health psych, of clinical psych, of organisational psych. It's really there to give you a taste of what the breadth of this area is. And then when you do second year, you get a little bit more specialised, and third year, you get a bit more specialised after that.
That's awesome. And the fact that you're able to sort of narrow in, see everything that's available and then choose what you like, that sounds very, very cool indeed.
And I think one of the biggest pieces of advice I always like to give students is just to enjoy it. So the more you enjoy it, the more engaged you are, the more you realise how amazing it is and how interesting it is, the more you're going to get out of it and the better you're going to do. So absolutely just enjoy it.
For sure. Thank you so much for that, Alyssa. And thank you all for tuning in. That's the end of our pre-prepared questions, but we want to hear from you and hear what you want to say. So we'll go live now to the Q&A to answer the questions you have. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to the Psychology and Cognitive Science studio here as part of Macquarie University's Open Day Streamed. Sorry we can't be with you in person today, but hopefully we'll be able to answer all your questions, psychology and cognitive science related, over the course of the day. To introduce myself, my name's Dylan and I'm a second year student studying a Bachelor of Psychology Honours and a Bachelor of Laws here at Macquarie University. I'll be your host for today, so I'm really excited to be able to share this day with you and go through this virtual experience. What you've just seen is a pre-recorded video with the Director of Undergraduate Studies for Psychology here at Macquarie, Dr. Alyssa Beath, and we're lucky enough that she joins us live in studio today. Dr. Beath is a researcher and a lecturer here at Macquarie University, and her research specialises in stress and well-being in the areas of educational and health psychology. What she's probably best known for on campus is her statistics memes that she includes in her lectures, which are always a fun and welcome addition to mix it up a little bit from the traditional content. So thank you again so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Hi, Dylan.
Hi, how's it going?
Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for being here, guys. As you can see now, we're going to go into a live Q&A session. So there's probably a Q&A function just here to the side of your screen. We've already got some awesome questions filling in, so please keep them coming and we'll answer as many as we can during this session. So jumping right into the first one, Anne-Marie says, hello, thank you for running this session. So thank you for watching. Year 12 subjects for psychology courses. She wants to know if there's any prerequisites for them. So is it necessary to study science subjects in year 12 or maths or physics or anything like that?
Great question. So there's nothing that you need to study in year 12 in order to get into psych. There's no core prerequisites that you have to do. We always recommend maths just because there is a little bit of statistics in psychology. It's part of the course that I really, really love because I do a lot of teaching on it. So if you have a foundation of high school maths, that makes you really well suited for studying it in psychology, but there's nothing that you absolutely have to do. And while the scientific method and scientific approaches is a really big part of psychology, you don't actually have to have studied any science in high school. So you don't need physics or chemistry or biology in high school. Just an understanding of the scientific approaches and how science kind of informs our seeking of evidence and evaluation of evidence will always be great, but nothing that you have to study. Just a good attitude.
But I even know in the end of year 10 when I was choosing subjects for senior years, I still didn't really know what I wanted to do for university. So it's awesome that you don't have to study any subjects because you have that flexibility and you have those options to obviously still pursue psychology in university if you haven't done, say, maths or science.
Absolutely.
So definitely an awesome level of flexibility to have.
Definitely. I think high school is stressful enough to take a little bit of pressure off it to do psych.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Alrighty, so we've got another question here. This one's from Michael, so thank you for tuning in. He asks, what can you combine with psych as a double degree?
There's heaps of things that you can combine with psych. Double degrees are really, really popular. Students love studying 2 different degrees at once, and it's a really great way of enriching and kind of extending your psychology studies. Some of the really common double degrees that students take are psychology with cognitive and brain sciences, which you guys will learn a little bit more about throughout the day. That's a really, really amazingly natural combination. But also studying psychology with education, studying psychology with linguistics, speech and hearing, psychology with law, which Dylan knows a little bit about, business, commerce, those are some really common combinations, but there's lots of different things that you can study together.
And I know studying 2 things, so having psychology and law and studying at the same time has just completely enriched my experience of uni, and I find it so interesting to study 2 really different things. But even the ways of thinking and the critical analysis that is so important to both of them really lends itself to the other. So the skills I'm learning in a psychology class, I can apply to my law classes and even have a little bit of an edge over other people who maybe aren't learning those things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's one of the things with psych is that it kind of enriches your understanding of so many things in the world, so it combines really, really well with a lot of different disciplines.
For sure, absolutely. So thank you for that question. We've got another one here from Jessie. She asks, is there an ATAR requirement for the undergraduate course?
Yep, so there's a couple of different ATARs because there's a couple of different psychology degrees that we offer. So the Bachelor of Psychology Honours is around 94, the Bachelor of Psychology is around 80. As you guys know, ATARs change from year to year, so last year's ATARs is just kind of a projection of what next year's will be. So the different courses have different ATAR requirements.
And of course, we have our undergraduate course guide, which tells you an indication of the 2021 ATAR cutoffs. So for example, if you're doing a double degree, it might be a different ATAR again. So you can always check that out. They're featured on our website as well. So feel free to have a look at them. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you stay with us till the end.
And one of the other things that's really common is for students to not quite get the ATAR into the psychology honours course that they want to do. And so then they can enrol in either the B-Psych or one of the other degrees at Macquarie and then do the psychology subjects and transfer throughout the degree. Macquarie is really flexible with our course transfer, so that's always an option. It's an option that a lot of students take up when they're studying at Macquarie.
So Dr. Beat, that's a really good point to touch on. I guess a really common question that people want to know is the exact difference between psychology honours and a Bachelor of Psychology.
Yep, so they're really common degrees, particularly in the first 2 years. The actual psychology content is identical between the B-Psych and the B-Psych honours. The main difference is that the honours degree is a 4-year degree, so that 4th year is your honours year. And every student who is, even those who are enrolled in the psychology honours degree, still need to meet the entry requirements to get into that honours year at the end of 3rd year. And those entry requirements are having an overall average WAM or weighted average mark of 70 across all of your psychology subjects, across all of your psychology units, and then an average of 75 across your 3rd year psychology units. So all students, even those that are in the psychology honours degree, need to meet the entry requirements to get into honours.
Awesome, thank you for that. We've got another question here. The question is, if I don't take advanced maths as an HSC subject, will I struggle in the maths component of the degree, for example, statistics?
Yes, definitely not. So as someone that teaches the stats component of the psychology degree, there are a heap of resources that we provide everybody with in order to help you if you think that maths isn't quite your strong suit. The other really important thing is that it's not pure maths that we do as part of psychology, it's applied statistics. And that's really, really different to the kind of maths that you would do at high school or the kind of maths you would do if you were actually studying a maths degree. So it's all very applied. It's all about using maths and using statistics in order to answer psychology research questions. And because it's that really applied context, a lot of students don't struggle with it like they would struggle with maths otherwise. And hopefully the way that we sell it and the way that we teach it using things like stats memes that I absolutely love doing in my teaching is a way of understanding the applied nature of it and therefore understanding the relevance of it. So it's not quite as scary maths as it otherwise could be, or a lot of people think it might be going in.
And even things like the set up peer-assisted learning study sessions to bounce any ideas off other students who've done really well in the subject, or even just unpack ideas more in a sort of class setting, in a group study setting. And things like the Numeracy Centre as well, which is available to all students, where it's pretty much like free maths tutoring. If you are having a little bit of difficulty with the maths component, you can go in there, talk to an expert, and get the help you need. So yeah. I definitely echo what you've said and say that there's so much help for you doing maths and getting on top of the maths components of psychology. Yeah. I was never a big maths student in high school, so I know that there's still all this support and people have my back and want me to succeed and get me through those components.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. There's a number of different support services at the university, both in the psych department and also generally at the university, to help anybody who's struggling through it. So there's a lot of support available. Absolutely.
We've got another really good question here that says, what does the syllabus look like across the 4 years of psych? So what areas are researched in each year?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at first year psychology, we have 2 different subjects that students study, Intro to Psych 1 and Intro to Psych 2. And the way that these subjects are set up is that they give students a taste of all the different areas of psychology. So every 2 weeks you cover a different topic. So you cover some social psychology, some personality, some health psychology, some learning, some neuropsychology. Every 2 weeks you get a different taste. And the idea with those 2 subjects is that they're a very broad exposure to the massive, wide-ranging breadth that is the topic of psychology. And then in the second year, there's 6 different core units that you need to take. So all students who are studying psych have to take those individual units. And that's social and personality psychology, biopsychology and learning, perception, cognition, design and stats. And then at third year, it gets a little bit more specialised again. So every year that you go throughout the degree, you get a little bit more specialised or a little bit more in-depth in terms of what it is that you study. So you start off really broad at first year, a bit more specific at second year, and then a bit more specific at third year. And the other thing that's great about the psych degree is that there's a lot of electives that you can take. So if you're interested in certain areas of psychology, like neuropsychology, like organisational psychology, health psychology, while you learn about all of those things at first year, at second year and third year, if you're really, really interested in them, you can take them as elective subjects and you can get even more exposure to the amazing areas of psychology.
And the thing that I love about that is, especially in first year, you were exposed to such a wide variety of psychological disciplines and your eyes are really open to what is entailed in psychology rather than just thinking it's about feelings or having these sort of preconceived notions that you come into it with. And as well, the lecturers that we get in those 2-week blocks are obviously specialised in their fields for each part of psychology. And these are lecturers who have done research for many years and are sort of helping honours students through their chosen disciplines. So it's amazing to be exposed to that level of expertise and having people with that passion so early on in our psychology degrees.
And I think it's also nice for students to get a taste of all the different lecturers who are experts in that particular area. So you get exposed to that just from the first year on.
And see who you like.
Yeah, exactly.
We've got another really good question here from Natalie. So thank you for posting your questions, guys. I can see them all flooding in. Natalie asks, what are some examples of research topics that students research during their honours year?
There are so many, I couldn't possibly cover all of them. There's a heap of different sorts of topics that students cover in their honours year. So every honours student gets paired with a supervisor, and when you first meet your supervisor, you get to talk to them and learn about what their particular area of expertise is. And most students will pick a research topic that's in their supervisor's area of expertise. So for my particular students, they look at stress and appraisal and well-being. I have some students that look at chronic pain, individuals with chronic pain. I have some students that look at academic performance, performance and stress and well-being at university. I have some students who look at learning. I have some students that look at positive psychology. So you kind of get to talk to your supervisor and learn about what it is that they do, what it is that makes them tick, and what it is that they're passionate about. And most students will craft their research project around what it is that their supervisor is interested in. And the benefit of doing that is that the supervisor is the expert there, so they can best advise the students in there. So it's kind of a combination of working between the student and the supervisor to pick a project that is doable, is feasible in the kind of year or a little bit less than a year that you get to do it in, but is also fascinating and novel and exciting and really just amazingly interesting.
And it's the only second year student. I can't talk from experience about honours, but definitely excited to hopefully embark on that journey and have that support from people who are so good at what they do and so passionate as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's your first exposure of actually doing your own research projects. You learn a lot about research throughout your undergrad degree, but actually doing your own research project, crafting a research question, designing a study, collecting the data to answer the question, doing the stats analysis yourself with support, of course. It's the first kind of exposure that students have to really being in control and having the ability to do it themselves, which is really exciting for them.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. We've got another question here from Sophia, so thank you for posting your question. She asks, if you were studying a Bachelor of Psychology honours but don't meet the entry requirements for the 4th year, do you graduate from the first 3 years with a Bachelor of Psychology?
Yeah, so the short answer to that is yep. There's a little bit of paperwork involved in transferring from the honours degree to the 3-year degree, but that is a common thing that a lot of students do. So if you get into the honours degree, or you think you might want to do honours, and then you decide that you don't want to do it, it's not for you, or you don't meet the entry requirements, then you can graduate with a 3-year BPsych degree or one of the other degrees, depending on what it is that you've covered throughout your undergrad.
I guess a really good follow-up question to that would be, if you do graduate without honours, if you go through and do your Bachelor of Psychology, what would you do typically as a career after that?
Yep, so there's a heap of different careers that you can cover if you've got a psychology degree. If you wanted to get into that pathway to become a psychologist, then you'd need to do it a 4th-year program somewhere else if you didn't do honours at Macquarie. But there's a heap of different jobs that students can do with a 3-year psych degree. So they can go into human resource management or counselling, community work. They can go into case management or social research. There's heaps of different jobs available, but you need that 4th year, which is the honours year, in order to get that pathway to become a psychologist if you want to.
But you do always have the option to do your 3 years of uni and still have so many rewarding and amazing career options open to you. So yeah, it's definitely not the end of the world by any means.
It's just lots of different pathways and different things suit different people. So it's quite a flexible degree in that way, in that if you want to go on the pathway, you can continue on that pathway, but if you don't, then there's lots of other opportunities available to you.
Thank you for that. So Sophia asks, hi, I do a Bachelor of Psychology students need to undergo an interview or screening to transfer into the honours year?
No, so there's nothing that students need to do in order to get entry into the honours year other than meeting the entry requirements. So it's something, the assessment happens behind the scenes. You guys don't need to do an interview or anything like that. You need to put in an application for honours, but all of the assessment happens behind the scenes. Your application's just saying that you want to undertake honours and giving us an idea of some of the topics that you might want to cover during your honours thesis, which helps us in allocating you to your individual supervisor.
And the really nice thing about honours at Macquarie, which is quite unique to Macquarie, is there's no quota or no cap on the number of students that are able to undertake honours at Macquarie. So if you're meeting the weighted average mark requirements that Dr. Beath talked about before, you have that option to go into honours and complete that honours year. You're not competing against your fellow students for spots, and there's not these big rivalries and this competition, a bit like it might be for leading up to trials in the HSC. It's really collaborative and it really promotes group work and working together towards a collective goal rather than sort of fighting against your mates to get in.
Absolutely. And that's a really nice thing about Macquarie. So some universities do have caps on their honours places, so only a certain number of students will get allocated places. Here at Macquarie, if you get the marks to get in, we offer all students a place. And as you said, it's a really great way of trying to get students to work together and realise that they're all doing this for this common goal.
Absolutely. We've got another question here. Natalie asks, is honours necessary to complete your Masters in Psychology?
Yeah, so the short answer is yes. There's a very specific pathway if you want to get into a Masters of Psychology, and the reason for that is because psychology is accredited at the Australian-wide level, at the nationwide level. So there's a very specific pathway that you need to follow and study at a university or an institute that offers an accredited psychology program, like we have here at Macquarie. So you need to do a 4th year of a qualification, which at most universities or places is an honours year. At some other institutions, it's called a postgrad postgraduate diploma, which is that kind of equivalent fourth year program. But yeah, if you want to do a Masters of Clinical Psychology or Neuropsychology or Organisational Psychology, any of the other Masters programs that either Macquarie or other places offer, you need to do that fourth year, which is your honours year here.
And it's really good that you guys are asking questions about masters and wanting to know things about after your undergraduate psychology. We actually have our Postgrad studio also live streaming today, and we have all the information you would want to know about postgrad psychology on at that Postgrad studio at 12 o'clock.
Yep, so at 12 o'clock we'll be talking there a little bit more about details about postgraduate programs, postgraduate degrees, so tune in if you're interested in those kinds of things and we can talk about it more then. And you can ask questions then too.
Absolutely. Lauren asks, is it difficult to do a fourth year somewhere else if we don't meet the requirements at Macquarie?
It's not necessarily difficult, you just need to find the right place. You need to find the right either university or institute or college that will offer a standalone fourth year program. So it is relatively common. There are a lot of students that get into that situation that need to do that. So there are lots of places that you can find. You just need to do a little bit of searching beforehand. So some universities like Macquarie don't offer students standalone entry into that fourth year of the degree. You need to be part of the degree before that to get into the entry into the fourth year program. But other universities and colleges do. So you just need to do a little bit of homework to find out what would be the right place for you.
My advice as someone who is looking to do honours in a couple of years' time at Macquarie is just work hard, keep doing well in your subjects. Don't be too hard on yourself. If you're not getting amazing marks, just keep going, keep working hard, use the support services available that we have, such as the Numeracy Centre that we talked about before, and as long as you're passionate, as long as you're working hard, there's so many options available to you, whether you do psychology honours here or at another uni, or whether you graduate with your Bachelor of Psychology degree. So definitely a lot of ways to go about it, and just keep going.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing, that it's really easy. I think particularly when you're experiencing the HSC and the intense stress that is, it's really easy to put a lot of pressure on yourself. But remember that if you enjoy something, if you're engaged with it, you're going to get so much out of it, and you're going to do better if you enjoy it. And that means that the most important thing is that you kind of give yourself the best chance that you can at doing well. Don't put too much pressure on yourself from first year. First year is absolutely a learning experience where you just develop the skills and the things that you need to do in order to get better in second year, better in third year, and then the world's your oyster after that.
Absolutely. So we've got a question here that says, if I want to pursue child psychology as a career, what would be some of the steps I would have to go through to get there?
So there's a couple of different ways you could do that. If you wanted to work as a school psychologist or a kind of a developmental psychologist in a school or something like that, most people would have a master's degree either in clinical psychology or clinical neuropsychology. It depends on what exactly you mean by working as a child psychologist, but if you want to call yourself a psychologist, if you want to be a practicing psychologist, you need that 6-year pathway to be completed, and that's your undergraduate degree plus honours, which is the first fourth year, and then a master's program or an equivalent postgraduate qualification after that. So you need all of those things if you want to call yourself a psychologist, be practicing as a psychologist, but if you want to work with children specifically, if you want to work in schools, you could either do clinical psychology or clinical neuropsychology.
Thank you for that. We might have time for one last question. So if you guys have anything that you wanted to send in, we can answer them. We've got one here that asks, if I want to do a double degree of psychology and cognitive brain science, does the ATAR remain the same?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. So if you have a look at the course handbook information on the Open Day website, you get all of the information about ATARs, but yeah, it does for that specific question.
So thank you so much for your questions, guys. It's been really fun talking to you guys and hopefully answering everything you'd like to know. Thank you, Dr. Beek, so much for giving up your time to be here and give the expert advice on everything psychology.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
The really good news is, if we didn't get to your question, we do have live chat just down here in the bottom corner of your screen, where you can talk to an academic, talk to one of Dr. Beek's colleagues, and they'll answer everything you want to know in a personalised consult online. Otherwise, you can go to our other sessions at 12:30 and 2:30. Dr. Beek will be back. We'll be answering more questions, so definitely tune into that. Also, we have moderators talking about the other questions you've posted in the Q&A forum that are typing to you now as we speak. So don't forget as well to check the on-demand videos and downloadable content that we have both on the psychology page and other areas of the Open Day website. If you do want to check out postgrad psychology or another area that the university studies, you can head back up to the main stage up here, and then from there go to the other areas of study. So thank you so much for joining us for this live Q&A after our psychology pre-recorded questions. It's been great talking to you guys, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye. Hope to see some of you guys next year.